Welcome to Quantum Possibilities. We're grateful for your presence as we seek to create wholeness for ourselves and our fractured world. I'm Penelope Case.
I'm Hope O'Brien.
And I'm Donnie O'Brien.
Hello and welcome to Quantum Possibilities. I'm Penelope Case.
I'm Hope O'Brien.
And I'm Donnie O'Brien.
I went to town yesterday to visit Denise Steff, who worked with Keith for 1,000 years, was Alison Krauss's manager.
Yeah.
You know, she's all retired. We both had all our shots, and so we got together for a little while. I'm hungover from it. It was just exhausting.
Oh, I know.
Like,
being around people.
go in the world, and it was just the two of us and her dog.
I understand. Being in the world with people, that'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I may continue to, except for selective visits with special people like you guys, I may just continue to be a hermit. I don't know.
That's fair.
I'm not really like missing throngs of people.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I've been around people a lot just because of the horse business.
You have to be, don't you?
Yeah. And I can attest to how, I actually had the thought the other day, God, this time last year, we were terrified and stuck at home, but if I'd have known then what I know now, I would have really relaxed into that.
That we didn't know how.
Yeah, I know.
It taught us.
It was the beginning of a deep shakedown.
What have you learned about relaxing into it? Both that question is for both of you and the cat if it comes back.
Yeah. What have I learned from it? To trust. That's the first thing that comes up in my consciousness. To trust in the amazing provision of the universe. This house is, this land, considering where we came from and where we are now, this is a beautiful promise. Yeah, to trust. And I don't say that lightly.
Yeah.
It takes me to a place of learning to breathe and appreciation for the moment, because I was guided to study nonviolent communication trainers. I think I was with like 4 different trainers. And I dove into the deep end of the ocean in my studies with nonviolent communication, and it was transformative. So I know a lot of people suffered in ways I'll never understand. Our lives were enriched. Bo was able to rest like he's never rested. He's been on the road for 25 years on different tours, grueling, brutal schedules. He and Donnie got time together like they've never had except for when she was, before she was 10.
When you were wee, yeah.
It was tiny. Yeah. So blessings for sure.
Do you, either one of you, have like fall out of that sometimes and fall into like anxiety or panic?
At first, but I was okay because I don't know. It's not like I all of a sudden couldn't go to school or anything like all my friends. Like hardly anything changed for me really. I could just be here and do my work and help with the animals and stuff. Not much, because we don't live close to people anyway, so it's not like we really felt like we were isolating. We were just here, which was really nice. I was gonna say something else and I don't remember, but
I was the one that went out.
Yeah.
I shopped, I went to the feed store for the horses and the grocery for us, and stayed away from the news as much as possible. And
that in itself is healthy, yes.
But if you had to answer your question for me, if there's any jolt or concern or worry, it's just old cellular memory. And I've learned enough to be able to say, okay, take a deep breath. What do you need? and find that, without getting too deeply triggered and reactive. So how about you? What was it like for you?
Wow. A year ago, I've always kind of welcomed it because it just seemed to be a lot of what I needed. I've had to learn to benefit from it, because it was kind of confusing at first, and there was a lot of arguing going on about how do we behave,
Right.
and thinking about how to take care of myself, because I was still adjusting to being a single person here too.
When did Keith transition?
September 4th of 2019.
Okay.
So I was still adjusting to that when along came this. I think I saw you just before lockdown. We were at a viewing for a friend's husband, remember?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And then right after that, I had come from a birthday celebration with Jane and Marnie. Marnie and I drove directly to the funeral home
Right.
and saw you there. And that was just like a time marker in my head that was pretty much the significance of that. And it's hard to remember what kind of place I was in at that time.
Sure. You were still
And
hovering above your body, I imagine.
yeah, to a degree. And I was doing all that work I still am doing a lot of work with Sandy, but I was deep in the part of grief as fuel and learning to do that. And then all the craziness of dealing with the company and closing and the guessing of how other people, how Keith did his bookkeeping and all those things I needed access to that he, with his moon in Scorpio, had kept so secret.
So you were
to him.
deciphering hieroglyphics, it sounds like.
Yeah, a lot of that. And sometime I'll show you some of his little cards that he wrote on, because hieroglyphics is the perfect word for it.
Lord.
But that's all done now. I am in such a different place. A lot of the working with the Akashic masters that you've had a little bit of experience with, they've cleared a lot of things. I'm just in such a different spot. They've given me tools for replacing the stuck parts in my body with light.
Ah, that's beautiful.
And when I remember to use them, which I do more all the time now, that's very helpful. I went through a lot of different, how do I do this? I signed up for a food delivery thing, which was great food, but the packaging and the byproducts were like such an assault on the environment. I couldn't justify doing it, so I quit.
Wow.
I made a lot of soup to the point of, oh my God, either 5 people need to come to dinner or I need to make smaller batches, and I don't know how to do that. And then Tori started going downhill too. So the focus on what could I do for the dog, and okay, long silence here because I don't know what to say next, because as she has transitioned, and then I had that fall and I got a concussion, and I went to see Christiana last week finally. And oh, sure enough, the concussion showed up like a big red spot on the back of my brain.
Sure. Then you've got the contra coup of the opposite side, where the brain bounces in the skull. So it's actually in 2 places.
Oh, yeah, because there were some little things up here that, yeah. On the other hand, the part that shows your emotions and how you think, she said, you're thinking much more deeply, and you have access to a much wider range of emotions. And that's all true too. I don't think I'm answering your question so much as kind of, going through the topic sentences of the last year.
Well, I'm hearing that your precious German Shepherd's transition over that period of time mirrored your own transitions and your own self-discovery. Does that feel accurate?
Well, she was leaving. I was kind of arriving,
Exactly.
but midwifing her or
Right.
being a doula for her and serving her in ways that had I had a life like before, maybe we've talked about this before, but the running and doing and all that, I wouldn't have been there for her in the way I was
Right.
so completely.
And I'm hearing courage for showing up for her. It's excruciating
Yeah.
to watch and experience that. And I'm also hearing that you showed up for yourself by staying present.
Thank you. I kind of did. And even though I went through that old pattern of self-destruction with the fall right after her death or her passage, she's not dead. Nobody's dead that hangs out and does stuff with me as much as she does every day. Even though that, the learning to live just me with not being responsible for anyone else is, I'm just learning so much. Learning so much.
I bet.
And it's a great adventure.
I'm loving how that makes me think of, with Donnie being 22 and stepping into her individuation and her sense of self responsibility and only being responsible for you.
I still don't consider myself that though because of all the animals.
Donnie, I really don't, I'm not able to hear you very well. Can we turn you up in any way?
Just get closer.
Yeah, I just needed to get closer. The computer was further
Yeah,
away.
come in. We want you closer.
So repeat that.
Please.
I guess just I don't consider myself pre-responsibility ever. I never have because of the animals. So, but that's how I like it, even if my friends don't get it, which it kind of makes me proud in a way.
That you're responsible for other beings other than yourself?
Of course.
Yeah, they've made fun of you in a little bit.
No, they don't make fun. Like they joke. They don't make fun of me.
Yeah,
but,
that's better. Sorry.
Well, that's the same thing in that group, which is my favorite thing. But they don't get it. Like they're like, just hurry up. It's like, no, I gotta do it. Stop talking.
Yeah.
Let me do my work. Jeez. They don't understand. Like some of them don't even have like, I don't know. The most they have is like 2 dogs and a cat sometimes because she's like outdoor. And then I don't know. One other dude has like a dog, and then a few of them just don't have anything. I can never imagine that at this point.
We've had a plethora of animals, that's for sure. But now with 9 horses, 6 hens, cats, a spider.
I love it.
It's amazing.
An extended family for sure. Are your friends that have animals in their lives, are they responsible for them?
No.
So are they like living in a family where there's other people that have to take care of the animals?
Yeah, exactly. So they're not even responsible for it really. So I'm the only one that really gets it the way I do. But I'm grateful for it.
What are you grateful for? Excuse me, Penny. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I'm just grateful for the companionship and communication that I have with all my animals. Like, we know exactly what each other needs without even like going through the communication phase anymore. Like the one of the dogs can just look at me and I'm like, oh yeah, like you need whatever. And I love that. Same thing with the horses too. And obviously the cats just kind of take care of themselves, but I don't know. I like that. And one of my favorite things is now we have an older hen that comes inside and just hangs out. And yeah, we have to clean up after her, but I love having her in here. She's Yeah, she's 6. And I don't know. I love her. She's very special and smart.
We've discovered an appropriate use for those awful face masks.
Like the blue medical ones.
Chicken diaper.
Okay, that's what I was picturing.
They fit perfectly because I ordered an actual chicken diaper from Etsy, but that hen
Well, of course. Was it embroidered?
that hen is very big and they don't fit her. They fit the other ones like pretty well when we had another one inside for a while. But no, she's wide and long, so those masks work really well.
Like, this is appropriate for this thing. Totally appropriate.
Okay, long ways, right? Like, do they go over the tail and maybe over the neck, or what?
Around the wings. The earpieces go around the
Around the wings.
Yeah, like a
Okay.
little weird backpack.
Yeah.
Like you put it on like a backpack, and then you just put it over the tail, and it works perfectly.
Yeah.
Does she complain?
At first she kind of does like a weird little walk, and then she does.
I think neurologically it makes her feel weird. Like when you put a sweater on a cat and they just kind of fall over.
Yeah.
She's like, what? And then she figures it out, and she's great.
Yeah.
So, Donnie, do you ever resent having to take care of the animals?
Absolutely not, ever. And I never have, never will. It's my favorite thing. I don't think I could live a life without it for very long. I would need it again. It's awesome.
They've ushered us through so many transitions and brought so much awareness and healing, especially the horses. The dogs too, for that matter, and the cats and the way they move energy. But the horses have really carried us through deep internal awarenesses and transformations and healings. And you know, like one of my horses, Sterling, knew I had breast cancer before I did. Just like my dog Abraham, the Belgian Malinois, he knew I had breast cancer before I did.
How did they let you know that?
Sterling, the horse, would bump my right breast. Like every time I saw him, he would make a beeline. He wouldn't wait for me to pet him. He would just go straight and just start bumping me.
Because he would do that in a friendly way. Like he'll just kind of nudge you or push you. But
he was aggressive.
He was like
with me,
hey.
Like would almost knock me down, kind of thing. And I knew he wasn't misbehaving.
No, he wouldn't do that.
No, he was one of the most severest rescues. He was trapped in a stall for 5 months, so he was severely starved. And I was literally a skeleton with skin draped on him when we got him. So his connection with us was so real and so much gratitude,
really strong,
both directions. So no, it was purposefully aggressive, and it really woke me up to animals' ability to support. How many levels of support can they offer, you know? So yeah,
I like this topic of responsibility. Can we
absolutely
keep going on this?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think this is perfect. We can.
What's alive for you? Why do you like the topic?
In case you needed a little help with that topic.
Yeah. I don't know. I like how I guess a few things for me specifically, because I didn't have any siblings, so they pretty much were that placeholder, unless my cousins were around, because they were pretty much my siblings.
Bless you.
Springtime. And yeah, obviously they'll never annoy you as much as a real sibling would, or not real, human sibling would. But they were pretty much that placeholder. Like they were. Well, recently I said to both my parents how lucky I was that my parents were my best friends, and they were like, how do you like consider that? And I was just like, a best friend is someone that you like just have a good time with and hang out with all the time and do everything with, and you get along and it's great. And that's what my parents are to me. But now that I think about that, it's definitely also what my animals were to me, especially our old dog Georgia. She pretty much raised me. She was the one that kept me from getting attacked by a rooster that was like my size at the time.
That's true.
A bunch of times.
Ah,
She was amazing.
She would stand in between Donnie and the rooster as he would come to protect his flock.
Yeah.
He was vicious.
Oh yeah, he was
oh
freaking
my
nuts.
gosh.
Huge Rhode Island red. We still have a picture.
Oh, yeah,
of
he was
him.
2 feet tall easily.
It was
huge.
insane.
Yeah.
And yeah, she would go hiking and climbing with us. She would swim with me in the pool. I don't know. She was my best friend when I was like 4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
and obviously even older till she transitioned. And then she taught our dog now what like everything she knows. So we still have a huge part of her with us. And
Is that Rowena?
yes,
Yeah.
Rowena was a puppy when we still had Georgia. But I guess on the responsibility side of that is I never like thought twice about it. Like I would go to other people's houses and they would complain of having to feed their dog. Like, of course, this is like 10-year-old kids who, you know, only want to hang out with their friends or whatever, but they got to do something for their animal and they would complain. I'd just be like, just do it. Like, I don't know. It's part of life.
Well, it sounds like you were aware of the exchange. You cared for them,
Yes.
but then they cared for you.
Absolutely.
I see.
Extremely. And then the other kids just kind of saw it as a job or whatever. Obviously, not everyone is like that, but some of them definitely were. But I don't know. It's always been like, you can have multiple focuses in life, but that's the one that is always there, is what does everyone need, you know?
Everything we do is in service of a need.
Yeah, and I guess I'm saying all this because of growing up with that just always there. It taught me how to, because I my like main primal drive that I can't get rid of is I want to help people. And I think that either if it didn't cause it, it like sculpted it into what it is.
It being your care for animals.
My care for anything.
Okay.
But the care for animals when I was super young always transferred to that. And I think I can kind of trace my care for animals down to one specific moment, besides all the inherent things of, you know, the way you care for animals. When I was about, I don't know how old I was, because apparently all of my memories are like a lot earlier. Like I was like, oh yeah, I was like 5 or 6, and you were like, no, you're 4 for this certain memory. Like I remember really early things apparently, but I don't feel 4. I don't know. So I was probably around 4 when this happened, but we were at your sister's house in Virginia, and there were a bunch of honeybees pollinating some of the flowers out front, and my dad taught me how to just gently pet them. And I will always think about that, because I wasn't like scared beforehand, but that's when I realized if you like put yourself in a certain, I don't know, place in your mind and heart, you can like communicate with anything that is alive.
Right on.
And I was freaking 4, and I was like, oh yeah, if you're just gentle, it's all good.
You have a relationship with wasps.
I do. I feed them honey and they like me. I would always save them from the pool and feed them either honey or sugar water during the fall when they were like starting to get slow like they do during the cold months.
How do you give it to them?
I just put it on a spoon, and I put it near them and they'll smell it and come over. I don't know.
Oh,
I always save bugs from pools, and no one else gets that. I don't know.
I do too. I save them from water troughs and stuff.
Yeah. Like that one time I saved a beetle that was like 3 inches long and had big pinchers, and it bit me, and I was like, I'm saving your life. And then I flung it off.
It was a thank you bite.
Yeah. It was a freaking thank you pinch that sunk like half an inch deep into my finger, but okay.
Oh my God.
It was a huge beetle with like really big, wide pinchers. It was still funny though, because, you know,
we've done things like that for multitudes of animals. I've stopped traffic countless times to pick up like I saw a squirrel get hit
Oh yeah.
on Highway 96 near Franklin, which is a busy road. And
Oh yeah.
I remember hearing tires screech, and it was this huge dump truck, but I didn't care. I was there saving the squirrel or whatever.
Oh, he was squeaking tires to not hit you.
Yeah.
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 And he lived, and you let him go, and he
Yeah.
was happy.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And then I stopped traffic on a 5-lane highway to, I was like a crossing guard for a groundhog.
Yeah. And we've saved like upwards of like 200 turtles.
Oh my God.
I helped them cross.
I will stop for turtles, even when there's no shoulder on the road.
No, you gotta.
I'll turn around. I can't help it.
Yeah, we
I
do
can't
that all
help
the
it.
time. You
Can't help
gotta. That makes me think of something because you brought up squirrels, and we've raised, counting that one, we have had 4 in our family. And for the responsibility topic, and also the Mustang has taught us this, there is a different amount of responsibility.
Oh my God. Excuse me while I get him away. Keep talking.
Speaking of wild animals, there's a different amount of responsibility that you owe wild animals versus just a dog or cat. And
Oh, how so? Tell me.
well, obviously the Mustang taught us that. Our regular horses, we could let them up like next to the house to come graze, except for the Mustang, because he would step up onto the porch, open the door, walk in, and just start messing with stuff. Yep. Because he was quick like side story. We were talking about it recently, and we've met. So I always thought that Dakota acted like this because he was a Mustang. He's really smart. He's mischievous, a jokester, whatever you want to call him. And then I thought of all the Mustangs that I've met before. We're living with an alien. This isn't just like a Mustang. He's like a freak of nature, genius creature.
Yes.
And it's not because he's a Mustang. It's because he's him.
Yeah.
He's just freaking miraculously smarter than us. Smarter than his own good, smarter than any other horse I've ever met combined. I don't even know how he does it.
That horse is an archetype all his own.
Yeah, he's freaking, it's amazing. But so obviously he taught us about the different, like I said, different level of responsibility you owe a wild animal. And we've taken care of quite a few wild animals, but I think the main thing I was going to talk about was our recent squirrel that we took care of. She was, I miss her too, but of all of them, like obviously it is a different level of, you can't just, it's not like a hamster. You can't just put it in a cage and feed it once a day. They need exercise, they need freedom, they need the best upbringing you can give them so that they can be, I guess, prepared when they eventually do live out on their own or semi out on their own, like our squirrel did for a bit. She hung out in the barn a lot when she didn't want to come inside anymore. But I guess what I was thinking is the responsibility that taught me, because I know not a lot of other people could handle that without having learned how to do it first. And obviously we learned as we went, but I was thinking about how she would communicate versus like the cats. Like the cats come in and eat and then lay down, but I don't even remember how she would tell me anymore, but she had a certain thing she would do when she wanted water. And then I would turn on the sink and she would like put her hand up on the faucet and drink from the stream. And then like eventually she just went and she would go in, if it was closed, she'd go under the door into the pantry, go go in the bag of pistachios or pecans is also what she really loved. And she would grab it and take it back out, just sit like on a chair or a table and just eat it. And then she would go back and get it. She would go back and forth. She'd do whatever she needed. She was incredibly smart too, but she taught me how to like the communication with wild animals is very different. Like she was rough on me too. I always had scratches and bite marks from her playing. And I guess the difference between like your domestic pets and then an actual wild animal is like they're like you could, I guess, train them to not be too rough on you, but like it's almost unfair. Like they have to be them. You can't take what you know and then force them into that bubble of pet. You have to step outside of everything you know about animals and just learn from them. And that's exactly what we did with our Mustang, who was wild. All the squirrels that we've taken care of, 2 for a short period of time, 2 before their eyes were open, pretty much.
The snake.
Oh yeah, him too. He was. You have to learn their language, and that also brings me to something real quick we were talking about yesterday, which is when sometimes because our horses obviously like they can look at us a certain way and we know what they need, and they know what we're thinking pretty much, just because we've learned each other's languages of how we communicate. And when I used to do like horse shows all the time, there were quite a few horses that would know, like they could kind of tell that I was paying more attention to them than some of the other kids, just because I knew what to look for because my freaking Mustang taught me. Like I know like a certain movement a horse will do if they want water or if they aren't comfortable. Obviously anyone can really tell if the horse is like nervous or whatever, but I don't know, I would wait for them to tell me things. And there were some horses that just couldn't do that. And it's just because yeah, they were shut down, or they never knew how, or they never knew that they could. They didn't ever have anyone, like maybe if they were younger, they tried and they just never got an answer, so they never tried again. Like I've realized that our horses know how to communicate because we taught each other. Like we taught them how to talk to us, and then vice versa. But this goes for honestly any animals that live with humans. They don't know how to speak each other's language. And I guess what I'm saying is when people say like that we know animal communication, or like we'll say that about ourselves or whatever, it's not just some like magical power of, oh, I can talk to that be a bird over there. No, it's like knowing how to translate each specific animal and knowing how to talk back too. I don't know, I need to formulate this thought more, but it's a lot more work than just being like, oh, he did that, so that means he's hungry. It's like, I guess it's literally 2 people speaking different languages trying to make it work, and eventually we always do. And it's, I guess in that way it is a magic power because we learned how to do it, but I don't know, it's work, but it's worth it.
Well, thanks to people like Penny and Barbara Janel. Here's to Barbara Janel, clink.
Yeah.
We learned the ability that we all have to communicate with an animal or a tree or a houseplant, whatever. We all have that innate ability, and we worked at it. We practiced techniques, and as long as you've studied, like with Tellington touch, Penny, all of the things that you've learned and the skills that you have developed. I'd like to hear a little bit about that and your sense of responsibility and how that's been a vehicle for you.
Mhm.
Anything that we do with animals like that, I think teaches us if we pay attention. I'd like to pursue this a little more with Donnie.
Sure.
Okay.
Because when, uh, also to say, in the Barbara Janel workshops, of which we did like 14 here at the house before Barbara didn't travel anymore. And I took some around the country with her and other people too. But I would block myself with some kind of fear. I would get right up to the edge of being able to hear, and then I would just block myself. And I have overcome that a lot. But Donnie, when you first showed up at one of the workshops, um, can you tell me how old you might have been?
13, I think.
Oh, you were an old lady by then. Because you came in knowing.
I guess so,
That's what
yeah.
we
I
talked
saw
about.
that in you almost immediately that you already had that skill. And I'm not saying it wasn't enhanced in the workshop because I really believe it was.
Absolutely.
And I was an honor to experience your work with Barbara and the growth, but you had a fundamental aspect of it. And as you were telling the story of the squirrels, I was thinking how many, because living in the country, working with kids in 4-H and just life. I've known so many people, including myself, who would find a wounded or a wild animal in distress,
Yeah.
and the impulse was to put it in a box, maybe wrap it up, give it some food, worry about it. Do we take it to the vet? All that stuff. But to um, force the animal to be in one spot,
Hmm.
probably to its great detriment, I can see now. I mean, how scary. How
Yeah.
scary.
I
But the concept of allowing a wild animal to come into your home and teach you about its needs. I love that. I think that's brilliant, and I'd like to hear more about it.
thank you for your observation on that. It's nice to like hear it reflected back, I guess.
Feels good to be seen.
Yeah. I won't say it's not hard to like talk about myself or my accomplishments or just whatever, because that's always weird. But I guess yeah, what you said about allowing them to come in and teach you about what they are is it's a really special thing, and it takes like I don't know, you just got to be willing to think outside the box because they especially because you're never just gonna, like you said, like if you find an injured one, you're never just gonna have a wild animal just come into your house. They're going to be there because they were either abandoned at a young age through whatever disaster would happen to them, or injured, like the squirrel that you stopped traffic for. He was a freak, by the way. He like
Yeah, he was.
if you would walk by the cage, he would like rock it and
He was like a
growl at you.
gremlin.
Yeah, he was nuts. But I guess to answer that, you do kind of need to know the special needs of every specific species. And I was gonna say something about what you said about how you'll find an injured one and you just kind of put it in a box and worry about it. Um, I've rehabbed enough because at our old house we had a pool, and sometimes birds would fall in and not be able to get out. Um, or just any animal, but it happened a few times to birds. And I quickly learned that it was because really all I would do, because they would get like, they would have chills from being in the water for a long time, and they need their feathers dry to fluff up. So really all I would do was just keep them away from any predators in this bird cage thing we have, just until they were dry enough to fly away. But I realized for a few of them that that actually did die overnight because I think they had too much water in their lungs. That kind of made me realize that the kind of the shock of bringing them from their life, they have a trauma of whatever, falling in a pool or whatever, and then immediately keeping them contained, surrounded by terrifying giants indoors. That was honestly, I wouldn't say it was killing them more, but it was keeping them from, like, I don't know, they would go into their freeze response. And that doesn't, like I said, it wasn't killing them more, but I think it was keeping them from wanting to try.
Optimal healing environment.
Yeah, they couldn't try. So eventually I moved it to put them in the bird cage, leave the bird cage outside, only so that our cats couldn't get to them, and then just leave them alone. And then that worked really, really well.
Would you leave the door to the cage open?
No, because then they, a few times had, like, they would just kind of flop out because their instinct was to run and then they couldn't. So they were just kind of like floundering on the ground because they were still wet.
So vulnerable.
Yeah. And then to like contrast this, because it's surrounding the topic of each animal kind of speaks its own language. Like for songbirds, for those little birds, it would work like that. And then, like I said, to contrast it, I think it was a year ago, we came home and I looked at we were in the car and I could kind of see splashing in the water trough. So I went over and there was a kestrel in there, a little small bird of prey. And I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm getting this thing back up to the house. So I, obviously just to protect it from predators, I let it sit on my hand for about an hour and just let it dry in the sun. And every time I would move, it would open its mouth at me, like threatening to bite me. Because obviously that's a more predatory species. So he was ready to fight me, but I held him just on my hand, and just kind of waited. And then eventually he was able to be dry enough to kind of fly and land on a fence. And then he went into the next field and he was fine. But yeah, that really speaks to the fact that all animals kind of speak different languages, and you, especially working with wild animals like that. And obviously by no means we're not like wildlife rehabilitators or anything. It's just the little acts of kindness that we've been able to do. But I don't know, through that, you're really learning on the fly. No pun intended.
Or pun intended.
Or pun intended.
Well put. Yeah.
You're learning what they need in just by observing them and waiting for them to tell you. And that's really what animal communication is just watching and learning from them, and then you go from there.
Well, I'm also hearing a deep trust in yourself.
That's
how you're guided is accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, Penny, there is like a little bit of fear that you do get at the beginning, and you have to work through it. And oh goodness,
Springtime.
Yeah, you do have the fear you have to work through, and I guess I say that because, well, like you said, I feel like I had a bit of a head start being able to, obviously, like I said, grow up around animals and then have the communication classes that we all took together, where I was hanging out with everyone who could have been my parents, but I considered them all my friends because why wouldn't I, you know?
You were equal.
Yeah, everyone is there, and I love it. But yeah, I say that to say, like, yeah, I feel like I did have kind of a head start and some innate like instincts, but it is still definitely hard work to train your own brain to look and listen and not doubt yourself on the first try. That's like the key to it. Your first thought is like 99.9% of the time the correct one. Like the first thing that comes to you, that's it. And that's the hardest thing, is trusting that. Because it's not like that when you're communicating with other people. Oftentimes you have to read into it, blah blah blah, whatever. But no, with animals, they're like, hey, this is what's up. And you gotta be like, oh yeah, gotcha, this is what we do about it.
Oh, I love that. Do you ever, like when you have them in your hands or you're very near them, do you ever offer them any like energy from your hands or?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And she taught me that the most, because that's pretty much your job now, is when you do body work with horses. Like obviously we're physically adjusting them, but a lot of it is from what we learned about how, like, learning what any living being needs. And normally what they need can be based off of like any trauma that they've had with horses and oftentimes with people. And you've learned that because you learned how to help yourself get what you need based off of how you feel. And so I feel like we both translate that into what the horses need emotionally. And yeah, can you talk more about that? Because it's
Yeah, it's I often I have a group of women that I ride horses with, and they don't make fun of me, but they'll kind of poke at my expression about holding space.
Mhm.
And to me, that's what prayer is. When you're praying, or whatever spirituality you might be, when we pray, we're holding space for a desired outcome. And when it comes to connection with animals and any level of healing or support that we feel led to do for them, it is what Einstein taught us, that we're energy. We're a Hertz frequency, light, sound, color. It's all a frequency, right? So and I say that to say not to complicate it, but the energy of this animal and the energy of our physical bodies and that space in between is a flow, and that flows through us, that power, that divine life force that we inhabit, and flows through us and can be amplified through that connection. And I think that sounded really complicated, and I didn't mean for it to.
no, that was good.
I thought it sounded very clear.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Right.
What was the original question again, just to be sure we answered it?
Gosh, help.
Well, originally I asked if you, Donnie, allowed energy
Oh yeah,
or yeah, offered them energy.
Yes,
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term, it's energy.
Mm-hmm.
It is energy. I found, because I do energy work and Tellington touch, as you asked a few moments ago, I found that the gentle Tellington touch, or any gentle touch, opens a door. I mean, touch has a physical response, but it also, in my experience, opens the door for the animal to allow the energy to come in. And I used to want to put my hand on and start running energy like a fire hose,
Right.
which is very, very frightening to a lot of animals and people.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
you know, I had to learn not to do that too. And that's why I've changed the word to offer, because we can offer energy now. And the space holding that you talk about, the same thing. And then it's there like a drink of water for them to accept or not.
That's beautiful.
That's such a
Yeah.
perfect way to say it, because I had to learn that too, obviously, because I would do the exact thing, like the fire hose, like you said, but I never had a word for it, but offering is that's perfect. That's what it is.
It's an offering and a trusting in that divine intelligence that created this world, that formed us, that's allowing for this whole experience. And I want to apologize for the rooster, but I can't stop him. So
Why? He's welcome to talk. We're not, you know, he doesn't have a union card. He's not going to get paid, but
we should introduce him one day.
say whatever he wants. I get a lot of birds over the course of a year who slam into my front door window or my picture window, and most of them survive. Now, I have gone out and dripped rescue remedy on them or sprayed it light. I learned to spray it lightly in the air above them because I think I once almost drowned a bird with rescue remedy.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, live and learn, you know, they taught me, but that fire hose approach was what I did for a long time.
Me too.
But that's comforting. We can learn.
Yeah,
So standing above and away from the birds so as not to add the extra trauma of my presence, I can still offer energy. And now I can relax enough, not feeling like I have to fix the bird, but I can just offer that. And if it wants it, I can almost see it accepting it. And that's a whole
perfect.
different thing than it used to be. Because
Perfect.
part of that was, oh, I have these tools, I have to fix this situation.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
that was the codependent thing. And to begin to let go of that. And as you both so beautifully expressed today, trust, just trust. And I find more birds getting their equilibrium back and flying away than ever now.
Lovely.
It's still heart stopping when I hear that thump on the glass.
Oh, I know.
yes.
Yeah, but
I get it too.
yeah, really. And then earlier, Donnie, you were talking about the animals going into freeze, I believe. Is that the word you used?
Yeah.
That is a condition: flight, fight, freeze.
Yes.
What are the other two things in Intelligent
around.
Touch? Fidget, fool around. And recently they've added faint to that list,
Sure.
which always makes me think of little goats falling over, but I think
Yeah.
it's wider than that. But the body produces stress chemicals when in freeze. So there is some negative impact from them just being in freeze. But it sounds like you allow them to be that way without aggravating that or intensifying that. And then I had another question without letting you answer that one.
You're good.
Did you find, or do you find that being taught by Barbara, guided by Barbara, with all your natural talents and the ones you've developed over the years, is it still, does it enhance them and give you new insights?
Absolutely. It like fine-tuned everything for me, and I know it definitely did that for everyone else. It mostly just taught me the most important part of it all is just to trust what you hear and trust what you know and use it, you know? And that goes for like all of life, but it really does work wonders when you're helping like even just a bird that hit your window, because we do that all the time. Or
Yeah.
somehow a bird that has gotten in the house, which also happens a lot somehow.
Yeah.
Just
I had a cool experience with that one day.
oh yeah.
Because what I wanted to say before that though was, it's, to me, it sounds like you both are profoundly aware of your intention. Connect to an animal, or you're even with a human for that matter, or caring for a sick plant or something.
Yeah.
Your intention is clear, and leaning into that intention is the propulsion
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
that puts us
Yeah.
in connection with that life form. but what I was going to say was,
Tell us about the bird.
oh yeah, there was a little sparrow that got trapped in the house, and we opened every window we could open, every door. Because of the high vaulted ceiling, the little guy just couldn't find his way out. And I remembered an exercise that Barbara Janel taught us about getting into the animal's body, like picturing stepping into the animal's body and looking out of their eyes and experiencing what that animal is experiencing. And we've done that before to detect for imbalances or illnesses or emotional state or whatever. But I had the thought, if I could step into this bird's body and look through his eyes and look where to see going out the window, I wonder if that would help the bird. If I set that intention, if the bird would fly out. And I sat down, and the bird was perched on one of the beams, and I looked at the bird, closed my eyes, pictured myself tiny and in his little body. I looked at the window, and I swear to you, that bird lifted and flew out the window.
Yep. I love that so much. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So amazing that intention to support and help, and along with some of the skills, really came together to help that little guy's life.
Yeah.
Because he was exhausted.
Yeah.
And so were we.
Yeah, it's stressful for everybody.
Yeah.
Because you're like, please just go out there, but he's in flight mode and can't see.
Yeah.
Like logically, he's just trying to go, you know? Amazing. I love that story.
That's cool.
I do too. I would have remembered it to check out an animal physically, but I had completely forgotten that. So thank you for bringing that back, because that is so useful, not just for the getting them out the window, but so many things. That's wonderful. And some bees. I think you know that Ellen keeps several thousand bees here.
Well, her colony has grown. That's wonderful.
Well, apparently, you know, the condos are, it's 1,000 bees can only take up a little bit of room. It's kind of amazing. And they come in the house a lot because I like to leave the doors and windows open.
That's exactly
And,
Yep.
yeah, and sometimes I can catch them on the window with the glass and slipping the piece of paper up and taking them outside, because that I've gotten really good at that over the years without doing any harm. But sometimes they lose sight of the openings and the places that I can reach. And I will be using that because that's going to be really helpful with the bees. And bees are so fast to respond, as I think Donnie was talking about earlier, that they just seem to pick up our thoughts like instantaneously.
I like that we keep coming back to bees. That's pretty special. About 5 minutes ago, you just let one out.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, one got stuck on the window, and I walked over and lifted the window, and he flew out.
Flew out like they do, yeah. Do you have any hives?
No.
My dad really wants some, though. I think we can someday soon.
Ellen and I talked about it at the last gathering before COVID.
Yeah.
So I need to connect with her and see if she still wants to do something, because we live near a water source, and
Yeah. It'd be really cool to have
it would
one.
be amazing.
My grandma has some because
Your uncle has them.
my uncle put some there, but she loves them. It's amazing. And she has like the most beautiful backyard in Tennessee.
Oh gosh,
like,
flowers galore.
Oh yeah.
Heaven for a bee.
Heaven for anyone, because it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's true.
It's her. She's always been very good at that. It's amazing. So yeah, perfect place for bees.
Penny, your place is beautiful too.
Mm-hmm. Yours definitely.
Well, and we're expanding the gardening part. I took that little shed down that was built to keep hay in, and Ellen has given me a list of the flowers that will best serve the bees.
Oh, yay.
So we're going to be planting almost all of them.
I would love that list myself.
Oh yeah.
Oh, easy enough. I'll get that to you.
Lovely. Thank you.
They're on our ornamental cherry tree right now, like crazy. So
Oh,
we don't
We
really
have a
have.
flowering shrub I'm looking at. They're all around.
Oh, and we
it.
have the lilac.
Yeah.
But it all kind of, because obviously we didn't plant everything here, but when the people that made
They built the house,
they made the gardens kind of
the landscape.
alternating blooming things.
Yeah,
like a few things will bloom and the next few things will bloom. So that's good for bees, definitely.
That's wonderful. And there's so many things that bloom at this time of year that we don't necessarily even acknowledge as flowers.
That's very
Little
true.
tiny
There's
things.
a lot
That,
of, yeah.
Yes.
yeah. And right out my office window here is a giant holly tree. And it's just swarming with bees right now. And I had a little video of them from last year, and it was the end of March, so it's about the same time. And sometimes they bump the window.
Oh, that makes me.
Not like the woodpecker does, but still.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering, is it time to put out our hummingbird feeders?
I was just about to say that.
I hung mine up this morning.
Ah, okay.
Some lady I know through a Doberman rescue who lives, I want to say Brentwood or a little south of there, saw a hummingbird yesterday, for whatever that tells you.
Sounds like we all had our thoughts in sync for that one a little bit.
Absolutely.
So.
I love them.
I love them.
Blow my mind that they travel from southern Brazil to here. Can't even wrap my brain around it.
Speaking of animal communication,
what?
Those little guys last year, when she brought the feeders in to clean them, and they will come up to the window and like hover. They're like, "Hello, where?"
Yes, they will.
It's so funny. They're like, "Where is it? What are you doing?"
They're very clear where their food comes from.
They are. They're like,
they are.
Like, "Hey, lady." And we were in the kitchen, and I'm pretty sure it like looked us in the eyes. It was like, "Hello, I'm hungry."
Like, okay, just
yeah.
I love them so much. They're feisty.
Oh, they are. I've heard they'll take on an eagle.
Jeez,
I've read that. Yeah.
I believe that.
They are fearless. And yeah, they trained me if I was getting ready to leave for the day and the feeders were empty. I have been confronted with hummingbirds as I go out the back. It's like, you can't leave yet.
Yep.
And Rick was visiting from New York, and I had told him about that, and he didn't believe me, of course. And then he got to have that experience. It's like, oh my God, it's true.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, so I know what you're saying.
They're very, very smart. No, they like yell at us if we get too close. Like they'll scream. It's so funny.
Have you communicated with hummingbirds?
A little bit. When we first moved here, I took a few hours and took my camera and just videoed the feeder. And I just sat there and watched them. And yeah, they're smart. They got their order and they keep it. It's amazing. I haven't communicated much after that, but observing them did teach me a lot, including the video I got of a hummingbird dive bombing another one, grabbing it and like flipping it in the air and like throwing it away. It was ridiculous. Like they will just like slam into each other to get to their food.
They're delicate, but they're not.
Oh God,
they're
no.
Tough.
Yeah,
no, they are fierce.
Oh, and one came inside and we had to because the door was open and it just accidentally flew in and we had to get it out. And I was like, all we did was open the window and let it go out because we were going to grab it and put it back over there. And I was like, I almost feel like these little dudes are gonna like have a freaking heart attack and die in my hands if I touch it. Can we just like put it out? And I think you can hold them. I think I was mistaken with that because people will band them and you can just catch them and let them go again.
Right.
They are not as fragile as I was thinking.
No, but they can get caught in corners. When I've had my office door open, I've had them come in and freak out and get behind the furniture.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they get, after a while, they're so, I guess, nervous, stressed, that they lose some strength. And I have been able to just pick them up gently and take them outside then. That's happened about 3 or 4 times. And then I finally got smart and quit opening my office door because it just didn't seem fair. It was too much of a temptation. And upstairs, it's kind of a half story up there. I think you've been up there maybe at some point. And with the vaulted ceiling, they would get up there and then they couldn't find their way out. I would open the windows and I started putting like a broomstick going out the window on a couple of windows. And that seemed to give them, not just hummingbirds, but other birds, something to follow, to go out.
That's
Very
really
smart.
smart. Oh my God, that's brilliant.
That's perfect.
Brilliant. Good to remember.
And this conversation made me think of something I learned long ago before I ever thought of a thing called animal communication. We were taking a class called Silva Mind Control. And one of the exercises is, if we had pets, to go home and call the pets mentally and to create like a line of light from wherever the pet was to us, and draw them with that line of light to come to us with no verbal communication. And that was pretty powerful.
Like
Also supposedly a good thing to do with lost pets, to bring them home. So to just create that light, and we always had animals, so we would go home and play with that and go back and report the next morning in the class. And that was one of my first successes with intention. Like, oh my God, it worked.
That's amazing. I can't wait to try that with horses.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
That's wonderful.
I haven't tried that with a horse. Let me know how it goes.
I'm going
Yeah.
to practice this afternoon.
I'm loving this conversation. It's a lot about what we said quantum possibilities was about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is no limit to how we can heal ourselves and our world. Consider the quantum possibilities. Thank you for listening.